sarvani bhutani
Yastu sarvani bhutani
atmanyevanupashyati
Atmanyevanupashyati
sarva bhuteshu chatmanam
Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam
tato na vijugupsate.
Tato na Vidyugupsate.
Would you like to have a go?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great.
Yastu Sarvani Bhutani
Yastu savani bhutani
Atmani Eva Anupashyati
atmanyevanupashyati
Sarvabhuteshu Cha Atmanam
sarva bhuteshu chatmanam
Tato na Vidyugupset.
tato na vijugupsate. Like to read the translation?
Yep. He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being.
So this verse is, as we explained before, and the Prabhupada starts off in the purport explaining this is the vision of a Maha Bhagavata. So Maha is great and Bhagavata devotee. So this is the greatest devotee, also known as an Uttam Adhikari. So the Adhikari means eligibility. So this is the topmost eligibility, Uttam Adhikari. And then the purport first of all discusses the Kanista Adhikari, which is the lowest eligibility, just a beginning devotee. And, conditioned to being materialistic, but trying to come out of that. They've been materialistic, like we all have been, trying to enjoy sense gratification in the world and turned away from God and everything like that, and trying to play God's role, being the enjoyer and controller and everything. And, and we've tried that, and what's the result? After repeatedly trying to do that life after life, we eventually get very frustrated and exhausted from that kind of life, which is just leads to a lot of suffering. And we're slowly reawakening to spiritual life, to understanding the soul, who we are, and God, and our relationship with God. And probably, we've had some association with devotees, because that's really the only way that someone can come from the materialistic path to the spiritual path. They've had some contact with some devotees of the Lord, and that has started to reawaken that seed of bhakti in the heart. So they're just starting out. So that's Kanista Adhikari, and then progressing more than Madhyama Adhikari, and we read about that last week, Madhyama Adhikari. And the purport now is going to talk about what the verse is saying about the Mahabhagavata, about the Uttam Adhikari. So Prabhupada's going to talk about that in the purport now. So the translation is talking about the topmost stage, but then the purport starts off with the lowest stage, then the middle stage, and then the highest stage, like that. Can you remember any of the symptoms or characteristics of the Kanista Adhikari?
Yeah, I think for the Kanishta Adhikari, I think they just think that God is in deity or in the temple only, and they just very limited, and they are more materialistic. I think they just think that. That's what I remember. And then I think the Madhyam Adhikaris, they have more understanding. They can understand what this Supreme Godhead is, who are the devotees, who are the then there are ignorant people who are, and then there are atheists basically.
Yeah,
so
very
he can
good.
actually categorize people.
Yes.
People, understand that okay,
Yes.
this is in the first stage or second stage, so he can identify.
Yeah. Okay, that's very good. And then, how does the Madhyama Adhikari treat those four categories of persons. How does he deal? What is his dealing or interaction with those four kinds of people?
I think he
So you
loves
mentioned the first one, God. So
God.
what's his interaction with God?
It's more of he loves God, or he as a
Yeah.
servant, or
Yeah,
as a
yeah. So,
servant.
and as we've said before, love means service. If you love someone, you serve them.
Yeah,
So he loves God, so he serves God. Yeah. And okay, you mentioned the devotees. So how does he think about the devotees? What's the interaction with the devotees?
I think he always looked to be associated with the devotees,
Yeah.
being part of, and basically, obviously, I mean, respect them and learn from them, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Prabhupada says friendship, but that's what you've said, that associate with them and like that. So that's friendship. Yeah. So make friendship with the devotees and the ignorant or innocent people. What's
Yeah,
the way
ignorant and
with
innocent
them?
people are people who are not who do not actually know about God. They are basically innocent. So to identify those people and help them on their
Yeah.
spiritual journey, or try to
Yeah.
awaken their dormant spiritual
Mm.
being, try
Mm.
to help them or direct
Yeah.
them basically in the right direction.
Yeah. So the Madhyamadikari, he's trying to help the ignorant or innocent people. So what does that indicating that the devotee on the Madhyamadikari platform, what quality does he have? What does that indicate? If someone's trying to help someone else, what is that signifying that person must be possessing?
So he has the right knowledge about his constitutional position, as well as he has the right picture context of everything, spiritual
Yeah.
life as well. And the people who are ignorant, or what do you call, they basically don't have that spiritual knowledge basically. So he's trying to identify and basically trying to turn their way, so that they can also gain that knowledge, so that they can also advance spiritually, which at the
Mm.
moment they are not have any idea about.
Mm.
Is
Mm.
that
No,
is that
that's
what you
true.
mean?
That's true. That's true. Everything you say, but I'm looking at some other from another angle. Um, if one person sees someone else's suffering and tries to help them, what does that indicate? That person possesses what quality?
So he's okay. So
And
he's
forget about just spiritual life, but just in general. If a person sees someone else is in difficulty or suffering and they try to help them, what does that mean? You have what quality? What
so
is
they
that?
have compassion, for other living
Yeah,
beings. So
yeah, yeah. So the Madhya Madhikari, he's developing that quality of compassion, of mercy, and that we say is kripalu in Sanskrit. Kripalu, kripa, and karuna means uh, mercy, kindness, compassion, like that, or kripalu. So these two words, kripa and karuna, indicate compassion in the heart of the Madhyamadikari. And out of that compassion, then is trying to uplift those that are not Krishna conscious, that are absorbed in materialistic life. And a person in Krishna consciousness knows that Krishna is the only real shelter. He's the only real shelter. If someone's not Krishna conscious, they're under the shelter of Maya, which is you could say another kind of shelter. But and we all know that because we also had taken shelter of Maya, and like I mentioned, we've suffered so much. So we know what it's like from our own experience, and of course, what we read in the scriptures confirms that. But we've all been through it. This miseries of birth and old age, disease and death. We've seen that, and we understand what it's like without any knowledge of Krishna and our relationship with Krishna, and without any knowledge of understanding that we're not the body, that we're the soul. And when we're fully absorbed in thinking we're the body, then there's so many anxieties, isn't it? So many anxieties if we just absorbed in bodily consciousness, material consciousness. And since we've come to Krishna conscious, we know how much happiness it's brought us. So from our own experience, we can understand that if someone's not Krishna conscious, they must be so unhappy. And that coming to Krishna conscious can solve all these anxieties and bring real happiness and real peace. So naturally, the devotee who's enlightened in that way is trying to help other people. Will always be thinking how to help other people. That might be being compassionate to family members, to friends or neighbors or anyone that we meet, anything like that. I mean, anyone like that. So the Kanistha Adhikari hasn't evolved that quality, is not so developed that compassion, is just thinking more about themselves. So there's still the materialistic tendency, of course, is very selfish. We tend to be in a materialistic consciousness. It's all about me. Even a Kanistha Adhikari is thinking about how can I get liberation? That's what they're thinking. How I can go back to Godhead, how I can get liberated. So I mean, it's some spiritual conception is there, but it's still self-centered. How can I get moksha? How can I get mukti? They're not thinking about how can I help other people to get moksha? How can I help other people to get mukti? They're just thinking about how I can get out. So, but the Madhyamadikari, he's becoming more broader consciousness. He's not only thinking how I can get out of the miseries, but he's thinking how I can help take other people out of the miseries too. And that consciousness is more pleasing to God also. It's more pleasing to Krishna. It's not so self-centered. There's a bit of selflessness there, and putting others in front of oneself. And that's very nice. Krishna likes to see that. Does that make sense? Would you like to say anything about
that? That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's right.
that? And we haven't said about the atheist. So how does the Madhyamadikari relate to the atheists?
So I think he stays away from those people.
Yeah.
So basically, atheists are who don't want to hear about God, or they don't, So it's very difficult. So and their activities and their association is not very favorable for Krishna conscious, so avoids.
And that's also mercy from the Madhyamadikari devotee, that he avoids them. So then what would you say about that? How is that kindness to not go close to them, not talk to them about God? How is that also showing them kindness by not approaching them and talking to them about God?
That's okay.
I did mention it, I think. Well, let's see.
Well,
And it seems a bit contradictory. You're ignoring someone, and then on the other side, you're saying that's compassion.
Okay, okay. If you're ignoring, then they are inquisitive about you, and then they probably start, well, that's a possibility, yeah. So you're ignoring him, and they feel bad.
Let's look at it. Let's look at it from another angle. If the devotee does approach them and preaches to them about God, about the soul, what kind of reaction are we going to get from the atheist? What kind of response would we get from an atheist if you start preaching about God to them?
They will start arguing, and they will ask questions, and they might just go away. I mean, or they might behave inappropriately to you, or they might just go away.
Yeah. They could deal inappropriate towards the devotee, and they might start blaspheming God. Oh, there's no God. What are you talking about? God? There's no God. Oh, I hate God. God is he's a bad person, because this world is such a miserable place. He's made us all suffer and everything. So anyway, like that, he's going to start talking all nonsense. He doesn't know anything, but he starts blaspheming God, criticizing, and he might get angry at the devotee also. And is that good for the person to do that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, from the atheist perspective, it shouldn't be. I mean, it's not good.
If an atheist starts to criticize or blaspheme either the devotee or God or both, is that good for the person?
No.
That's very bad. That's very bad. So that's actually compassion to stay away from them. Because if you go close to them and talk to them and that makes them angry and they start to blaspheme and criticize or even physically become violent or anything like that, verbally, swearing and everything like that, abusing, then that's bad karma. That's more than bad karma. That's called aparad. That's offensive behavior. That's offense. So to save them, to save those, ignorant atheistic people from making aparada, from making offences both to God and his devotee, then he stays away. Then the Madhyamadikari just keeps a distance from them. It doesn't mean we don't love them, but it means that's how we stop them from going more farther backwards than what they already are. We don't want that. They're already down, but we don't want to make them any go more down. What we can do is from a distance, we pray to God for them on their behalf. God, please help them to come out of their atheistic mentality like that. I mean, the most we could possibly do is maybe try to give them some prasadam, because not many people are going to get angry about prasadam. And I
Exactly.
mean, but you wouldn't go and tell them, we've offered this to God. Here it is. This is prasadam, means it's been offered to God, because then that's going to make them angry and they might throw it back in your face or drop it on the floor or in the rubbish bin, put it in the rubbish bin. And then once again, that's aparad. If you're a cause of them putting it in the rubbish bin, then that's not only an offense to them, but that's an offense to you also, because you caused it, because you caused that to happen by your way you presented it. So you have to be careful about how you present. See, when you become like a preacher, or you could say a teacher, then you have to be very conscious of how you're presenting the philosophy. And you got to take into consideration who is it that you're teaching, what is the audience. Like example, the way you teach your children is not going to be the same as the way you teach an adult. Their level of comprehension, everything's different. So you're not going to just teach the same way to everyone. So you are just like the Madhyamadikari. He's able to see different kinds of people and he'll deal with them differently. He doesn't treat everyone the same because they're not the same. God is different than a devotee. You treat differently. The devotee is different than someone that's ignorant, and the ignorance different from someone that hates God, so you deal differently. So you might be able to give them prasadam, but you might just say, here's some food that we've cooked at home or whatever like that, and please have it, because it's common amongst everyone that you exchange food. There's nothing abnormal about that, so no one would really probably get too upset about that. But if you present it in like a religious or a spiritual way, atheistic people would maybe get upset about that or wouldn't want to eat it like that. So you just have to be aware of that. And does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's yes. I mean, definitely makes sense. I mean, you can't tell somebody which irritates them. It's not gonna do anything. It's not beneficial for them and not for you as
Mm-hmm.
well, because he's not gonna take that. So there is no point actually. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I,
food is very good. I think food part is very good
yeah,
because everyone eats food,
yeah,
and
yeah. Everyone
you
eats
don't
food.
say anything, and then prastadam works.
Don't
It's
say
just
anything.
good.
Don't
Yeah.
say this is Maha Prasadam. It's offered to
Come and have
God.
some.
But to an
That's it.
atheist, they're going to get
Yeah.
upset.
I mean, that's
I,
that's
I mean,
pretty.
I mean, I've given food to prasadam to my mother and father, but I didn't tell them this is offered or sanctified or anything like that to God or anything, because I know they wouldn't eat it. But they ate it the way I presented it, but because they don't know it's been offered to God or anything. But I have, in the beginning, I was very naive, and definitely more Kanistadikari, and I just preaching to them. and they got my father especially got very angry at me. And even not too long ago, I thought, okay, I won't tell them about God, but let me try to talk to them about that we're not the body, that we're the soul, we're not the body. But even that was too much for my father. He said to me, he wrote me an email the next day and said, after that email you sent me, talking about we're not the body or the soul and all this kind of stuff, he said I couldn't sleep that night. He was just so disturbed. His mind was so disturbed, and it was just confusing for him. I mean, for us, it's like ABCs, we're not the body, we're a soul. That's the first thing. It's so basic knowledge. But for him, in an atheistic mentality, he's just so covered over by Maya that for someone to tell him that he wasn't the body, that he was the soul, and you live on after death and everything, that just confused him and disturbed him so much. He said, I couldn't sleep. And he was actually very angry. He said, don't do that anymore. Don't do that again, and, like that. So, we might not think anything of it. It's so like easy, but for other people, it can be very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you are not upsetting somebody, upsetting won't do anything. I mean, whatever you teach, if you are, if they're not taking it favorably, there is no point of actually talking to them. Yeah, I think the food is better way. Everyone eats food, so I mean
So what I generally do now, if someone asks me, I wait for people to ask me, oh, can you tell us about reincarnation? Then I tell them. Can you tell us about the soul? Okay, tell them. Tell us about God. Okay, then you tell them. So they if they have an interest, that's the best. Rather than you try to shove it down their throat, force the philosophy down their throat, especially with Kiwis and Aussies and even many Indians these days, they're brought up in a Western kind of thing. They've also adopted the Western mentality. You can't shove it down a modern Indian's throat either.
No.
Previously, Indians were taught that, whatever your parents tell you, you just have to accept it or whatever like that. But it doesn't work like that anymore. People aren't just going to blindly accept anything, isn't it?
Yes, that's very true. I mean, it's not just Aussies or Indians or Western people or white people. Indian people, I think I can relate to it. I mean, I was like, I've been following, but I don't care. I mean, I don't never thought about it. And it's like, so it's not just applicable. It's to everyone. There are Indian people who are just following different path.
But what I'm saying is, previously in Indian culture, there's a big culture of respect for your elders, for authorities and your elders, your parents. Whatever the parents say, you have to accept it, like, isn't it? Like you'd never say no to your parents, right? Previously, I mean, going back generations. I mean, now it's not like that. But previously, it's what I've heard. Even with my father. I would never, when I was young, taught, never to disobey my father. I knew otherwise he's going to give me a smack, and he was very strict, so it used to be like that in the old days that, the parents were very strict and the children had to be obedient and they had to do what they're told while they're living under the parents. They had to do what they're told, and you can't argue and you can't ask why, isn't it? It was like that. You can't say why. But now it's not like that. We're brought up in a scientific kind of environment and we're trained to ask why. As soon as they say, can you do this? Then the first thing you're going to say is why. So we're taught to question. We're taught to question. And that's very normal now. But previously it wasn't. You just accept what you're told. Whatever you're told, you have to do that. But it's not like that anymore. And you can't do that with people anymore.
Exactly, and then the other thing is that I think being inquisitive, not just doing something when everyone like herd mentality. Everyone is doing, I have to do it without questioning. That's wrong. I mean, you have to ask questions. That's good, but the people who need to, like my parents or my parents, they are following it. They can't explain the things. Then it goes there. If somebody comes to you tomorrow, you will be able to explain it. But my parents, they are just following it. So it's they don't have the knowledge, but they are just following it. So which causes the problem? But being inquisitive is good if they are in somebody right person teaches them that, or just increases their curiosity in that direction. They will ask. But I think maybe 100 years ago or maybe 60, 70 years ago, we follow what respecting parents and elders was very good. You follow everything without asking questions. Now the thing science has come up, as you said. Everyone asks question, why we are doing that? Why are you doing that? You don't. But since nobody is able to give right information, why we are doing
therefore the culture is just being lost.
grumbling.
Because the kids are now asking, why should I do the arti? Why should I chant japa? Why should I read Bhagavad Gita? And the parents are not able to give a logical, reasonable answer, so the kids are not doing it, and therefore Hinduism is just becoming lost. So, but Prabhupada, he has presented the Vedic culture in a very scientific, logical, reasonable way, with answers to every possible question. And we're fully satisfied in those answers, and therefore even non-Hindus, like as many thousands like me, millions, are taking it up, and Indians themselves are becoming surprised why these people are not Indians. How come they're following my culture? Is because it's been for the first time, in a long time, at the first time in a long time, being presented in a very scientific way, and not just some religious dogma or rituals or like that kind of ritualistic way, but very logical, scientific, showing what is the results it gives and the benefits and everything like that, and this process, scientific, how step 1, step 2, how to do it, everything, what's the result, everything. And then people are taking it up because it's so scientific.
The system was lost. I mean, there was the real knowledge has lost. People with the real knowledge have been lost. I mean, except Prabhupada and they're kind of a disciplic succession. But there are very limited people who have the right knowledge, and everyone is all following the current kanda part. You should do this and that without asking questions, without having right knowledge. So that is very important. And as you said, if you give somebody like Prabhupada has explained everything scientifically, with examples, then anybody who will accept, anybody who is actually a bit intelligent, they will understand it. But
the way he presents it,
if you can't tell me why we do arati or why we do japa is very scientific. I mean, I'll look at different angle as well. I mean, but it's very scientific, there's so much thing there. So right knowledge has to be given, and that's where we were missing, and that's why it caused the all Hindus or Indians have lost that that system which used to be so good. But it's gone. So that's why, and that surprised me as well. I mean, I never thought from a spiritual point of view anything. I mean, it was just all material, just following people, herd mentality. Everyone is doing this, let's do it. That's totally wrong. If you that's like more animal. If you don't question anything, that's So that's so true. We have lost the very good way of living, and but thanks to Prabhupada, he has spread it all over, and I can get that in Australia as well. It's pretty good. I mean, I would have never got it in India. Probably I would have never. It's thanks to him.
So Krishna has a master plan to rescue us, luckily. Okay, so let's continue the purport then. Well, let's
Para 3 or
above the Madhyamadhikari.
Above the Madhyamadhikari is the Uttamadhikari, who sees everything in relation to Supreme Lord. Such a devotee does not discriminate between an atheist and a theist, but sees everyone as part and parcel of God. He knows that there is no essential difference between a vastly learned Brahman and a dog in the street, because both of them are part and parcel of the Lord, although they are encased in different bodies on account of the different qualities of their activities in their previous life. He sees that the Brahman particle of the Supreme Lord has not misused his little independence given to him by the Lord, and that the dog particle has misused his independence and is therefore being punished by the laws of nature by being encaged in the form of a dog. Not considering the respective actions of the Brahmana and the dog, the Uttama Adhikari tries to do good to both. Such a learned devotee is not misled by the material bodies, but is attracted by the spiritual spark within them.
Mm. So this may seem to be aren't we going backwards again? Because the Madhyamadikari, he is able to make distinctions. But the Uttamadikari, he's not making distinctions. So isn't that going backwards? Actually, it's not, because what are these distinctions we're making based on? What are they based on?
Bodies.
On the body. But that's from the Uttamadikari's vast knowledge that he has, knowing that we're not the body. No one is the body. Everyone is the eternal spirit soul within the body. So the body is just a temporary covering due to Maya, due to associating with the modes of material nature. We're in a particular body. A soul is covered by the mode of ignorance, so he's in the body of an animal, and someone's in the mode of passion like that, and the body of a materialist, and someone's in the body of the mode of good. I mean, covered by the mode of goodness, and is like a brahmana like that. But these are just due to just some external coverings of the modes of material nature. But knowing that actually we're none of these coverings, we're beyond that, we're the eternal soul. So seeing on that platform and being compassionate to all of them, even animals, and the plants and the animals. And how do they do that? Act compassionately towards every living being. That's by their own development of Krishna consciousness, by their chanting. Just by their chanting, their pure chanting, they're benefiting everyone. Like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, one literature, Vaishnava literature, today is actually the anniversary of the day that the Chaitanya Charitamrita was written about 500 years ago by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present on the world, he composed that literature. So this is the anniversary of that day today, very special day. It's actually Akshaya Tritiya today. I don't know if you know about Akshaya. Do you know what Akshaya Tritiya is?
Yeah, I think I've got some messages from another group. It says, and today is a very good day for donation or something like that.
Yeah, it's a very good day for starting anything, to begin something, to start something, some project or whatever like that. So many great things in the history of the universe began on this day. Even like every year, Chandan Yatra, where they put the chandan, the sandalwood, on the deities in temples. Have you heard of Chandan Yatra?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay. It happens every year. So on this day, they start Chandan Yatra, putting the sandalwood on the deities every day for 1 month. So it starts on this day. And this is the day they start to build the Rath carts for Jagannath Rath Yatra. They start to build the carts on this day. So it's a very auspicious day for beginning many things. And so yeah, anyway, this literature was anniversary of this literature, and yeah, what was the point I was going to make?
You were that it was written by
Krishnadas Kaviraj, yeah.
Yes, about Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Chaitanya Charitamrita, but yeah, what was the
point?
Oh yeah, by their chanting. Yeah, just by their pure chanting, then it's mentioned there. The question was asked, how can the non-moving living entities be liberated? So non-moving indicates the plants, because they can't move, obviously. So the non-moving species, that there's also a soul within the plants. So how can they be liberated? And it was explained just by the loud chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, even the plants can be liberated. So this is the understanding of an Uttamadikari. He'll just by his pure chanting, which is called Shuddha Nam. Shuddha Nam means the pure name. So by chanting the name purely, with prema, with love, then just by that chanting with love, then loudly chanting, even the animals and the plants and the birds and that, they get uplifted like that. And the pure devotee is praying that they can all become Krishna conscious, praying to God. He's praying to Krishna, please, my Lord, liberate all these souls. Please be kind to them and liberate them. So just by his desire, then so many living entities are getting benefited. So then they're not just seeing the body. Okay, there's a brahmana. I'm going to help him. And there is a chandala or a sudra. I'm going to ignore him. No, he doesn't see like that. He's not just seeing the external covering. He's beyond that. He's just seeing there's a soul everywhere and acts transcendentally. And going directly to the soul. I mean, many times devotees commented that, like when Prabhupada looked at them, it's like he looked directly through their eyes and into their soul. Many devotees had that realization. They felt like they were naked in front of Prabhupada, like that Prabhupada was seeing right through them, right into their soul. So the Uttamadikari is like that. They have a different vision. They see the soul everywhere. They're not just seeing, it's like, you just see the shirt. No, but the main thing is not the shirt, it's the person that wears the shirt that's important, not just the shirt. So the body is also, the skin is just another kind of shirt, another kind of covering. So they're not taking that the body is important, that the soul is important, and that spiritually we're all the same. We're all parts and parcels of the Paramatma, the Supreme Bhagavan, the Supreme Soul. So they see everyone equally, and that's called Samadarshana, and that's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, fifth chapter, text 18, that the advanced devotee has that Samadarshana. So Sama means equal, Darshana means vision. So you'd know those words, so equal vision. So that's what the equal vision is. You see the soul everywhere, which is we're all equal spiritually. We're all part and parcel of God. And not only they see the individual soul everywhere, but they see Paramatma everywhere. Because there's two souls, remember, there's two souls in every body. Within the body of the plant or the animal or the bird or the human or whatever, there is the individual soul, the Jivatma, and then there's Paramatma, the Supreme Soul. So they have that vision and that realization that God is present everywhere. And that was mentioned in the translation, I think. Yeah. So who sees all living entities as parts and parcels. So, seeing that within the body is a part and parcel of God. So that's the same. And who sees the Supreme Lord within everything. So they're seeing those two personalities, the Supreme Person and the individual part and parcel is within every physical body, whether it's a plant or an animal or a bird or a human or whatever like that. So that's the focus. That's the most important thing. And the body is quite insignificant, what kind of body you're in. It's like whether you're wearing a $200 shirt or a $5 shirt, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter. So having a human body is like a $200 shirt and having an animal body is like a $5 shirt, but that doesn't matter. It's the person inside that matters, so.
I think that's pretty high. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, just looking at everyone and just thinking, you are the soul. It's I don't know. I mean, as you said, just by chanting you can achieve that. Probably, you can. I mean, but it might take, well, I don't know how much time. A lot of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's 9 processes in bhakti, 9 processes, not just chanting, but any of those
uh,
processes. But we have to take it up very seriously, very
seriously.
sincerely. And if we do that, then we can become very quickly purified to the point of developing that. But yeah, that can take a long time or a little bit of time, depends how seriously we take it up, our chanting. Because like there's 3 levels of chanting. There's called nama aparad stage. So that's when we're chanting Hare Krishna, but we're making offenses. So there's 10 offenses. There's 10 aparads, 10 offenses in chanting the holy name. So if we're committing those 10 offenses while we're chanting, then that chanting is not going to be so effective. It will still be purifying us, but very slowly. But the next stage is called Nama Bas chanting, and that's called the clearing stage. So you're you're you know what the offences are, and you're trying to remove the offences. You're trying not to commit the offences when you chant. And then there's Shuddhanam. That's the pure name. There's no offences whatsoever. You're just chanting with complete love of God. And if you chant in that way, then obviously then you'll have that spiritual vision and everything. Krishna will be so happy, and you'll have that. But it's recommended if you're chanting with offences, nam aparad, the remedy for that is just to keep chanting. There's nothing else you can do. You just have to keep chanting, and like I say, we ideally want to come to the point at least that we're trying to not commit offenses while we chant. Like I'll give you an example, and this is said to be the mother or the root cause of all the other offenses. Like I'll give you an example. The first offense to the holy name is said to blaspheme devotees, or persons who have dedicated their lives to preaching the glories of the holy name. So that's the first offense. The second offense is to consider the names of the demigods to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. That's the second offense. The third offense is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. That's the third offense. So like that, there's 10 offenses. So it said that the last one mentioned is to be inattentive while chanting. That's the root cause of all the other offenses. That's the mother of all the offenses, to be inattentive. So basically, the best thing we can do to help us accelerate our progress is whenever you're chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, you just try to be attentive as possible. Concentrate your mind. Now I'm chanting, I'm not going to think about anything else. I'm not going to think about yesterday or what I got to do today or tomorrow or anything else. Just focus on, I'm just going to hear these sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So just try to focus the mind very attentively. So that will help us to overcome these offenses. And then this kind of vision, spiritual vision, will become a lot more quickly available to us.
I think that's where I also wanted. I mean, how to do japa. I mean, I have started, but yeah, I think the 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 very important part, as you said, the abroad 10, which is being non-attentive. Your mind goes everywhere. You have to bring it back. You have to bring it
Yes,
back to the mantra. You have
yes,
to bring it back.
yes,
So
yeah,
basically, I mean, if you look at it, it's, I mean, that's what I learned in some other meditation book as well. I was trying
yes,
to follow something. So this
yeah,
concept is same. You have to bring your mind
yeah,
back to the mantra. Is that correct?
yeah. Yeah, this is a
Exactly.
universal principle. Even in Astanga yoga, Hatha yoga, whatever yoga,
Exactly.
Jnana yoga, same principle.
Mm.
The whole idea of any yoga process is you must control the mind. The mind can be, as the Bhagavad Gita says, Krishna says in the 6th chapter, the mind can be our best friend or our worst enemy. He said, if you can't control your mind, it's your worst enemy. If you control your mind, it's your best friend. So it doesn't matter what yoga you do, even if it's not bhakti, but the main purpose of it is you have to control your mind. Because that's our ticket to hell, is our uncontrolled mind. You know, we become lusty, greedy, angry, puffed up, everything crazy,
Yeah,
you know, with
exactly.
the mind, you know.
Everything starts in mind. So if you
Yeah,
are
it's all in the mind.
aware of your mind, what's happening, you can stop it.
Yeah,
But if you are
yeah,
unaware of your mind, and that's
yeah,
where the japa comes in, I think. It's
yeah,
where you are actually, first of all, you are actually remembering Lord Krishna, and then
yeah,
you're basically, the mind.
yeah,
It helps. I mean, it's combines.
yeah.
So
And this
so
process of chanting, the very first thing that's said about this process of chanting, what it does, is Chaito Darpana Marjanam, which said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said this about chanting, that this chanting, it cleans the mirror of the mind. The mind is compared to a mirror. Means with a mirror, right, you can see yourself, right? Right? With a mirror, you can see
yes,
yourself. But if it's covered by dust,
you can't see yourself.
you
You're
can't
right.
see. So this chanting, it cleans the mirror of the mind. See, if the mind is purified, we can see ourself, which is the soul. Just like a mirror, you can see your reflection. You can see yourself. So also, if we clean the mind of all impurities like lust, greed, anger, so forth, with the pure mind, we can see the soul and we can see the supreme soul. And that's actually mentioned in the 6th chapter, text number 7, that Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita sitosnaka sukaduke sutatamana pamanio. Once the mind is conquered, the super soul is automatically reached. For such a person, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So that's the thing. The only thing that's between us and seeing the Paramatma, between seeing the super soul, is the mind. Is the rebellious, uncontrolled mind. If we can just get this rebellious mind under control, conquer it, then like Krishna's saying there, you immediately reach the super soul. Because do you know what the distance is between you and the super soul? How far away is the super soul from you?
I don't think I know anything. I mean, must be very, very far, I guess.
No, no, not at all.
Oh, okay. In terms of Paramatma, it's very near, but
Paramount, I'm talking about in the heart.
in the heart,
There,
it's
there's,
very close. I mean, yeah.
you're right next to him.
Next.
You're right next to him. But we can't see him because of the mind. Because of the mind is projecting our attention outside.
That's right. Yes. Mm.
It's like, it's like now you see me because you're looking this way, but imagine are you in a swivel chair?
Yeah,
Is your chair?
I can turn it back and I
Turn
won't see.
around, turn around, and then say if you can see me. You
I
can't
can't
because you
see you,
turned away.
obviously.
So it's like that. See, so you're
Yeah.
still close. You're so close, but you've turned away. So that's what the false ego and the mind does. You're so close to God. It's like this, but you just turned around and you can't see him.
Mm.
So the whole process of Krishna consciousness through the chanting is to turn around again. You're already there. It's not like you're miles away and you're coming close. No, you're already close, but you just turn the wrong way. You just got to turn around again. So and so why we can't see the soul or see God is because of the mind is out of control. And it's looking, look at that beautiful woman. Oh, the money, you've got to get more money. Oh, that car, I've got to get that car. Oh, that I want that house. It's looking everywhere else. That's the thing. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So this chanting process is reawakening our relationship with God and then we're turning back towards him again. And he's right there. He was always there and we were always here, but our mind has taken us somewhere else. You know what the mind's like, right? You could be
Mm.
sitting there in Sydney, but you could be thinking, your mind could take you to India,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, you could be thinking right now about your parents in India or something. Now, then where are you? If you're thinking about India, where are you? Are you in Sydney or you're in India?
I'm physically in India, man. By mind, I'm in India, I guess.
Yeah, but actually you've been taken to India.
Yeah. I think,
See
yeah.
yourself.
So I mean, that's where, because every material thing you do starts up here, isn't it? It's in the mind.
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, the Krishna is saying every time, just meditate on me, remember me every time. So it's basically changing the mind, clearing it up, as
That's
you said.
it. That's it. Yeah, yeah. That's why I said the ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Krishna consciousness, conscious. What is that? Conscious means thinking. Conscious means thinking. Thinking. What is thinking? The mind is thinking.
Or
So
being
you've got,
aware, yeah. I think
you
being
get
aware as
awareness,
well.
consciousness, awareness. So what is aware? The mind is aware. This is where the perception is there. Thinking, feeling, willing. These are the functions of the mind. So it's changing that mental state to, instead of thinking about Maya things, external things, you're thinking about Krishna, things related to Krishna. Or even when you are looking outside in Krishna consciousness, you're seeing the tree has a relationship with Krishna. The animals have a relationship with Krishna. The house has a relationship. The money has a relationship with Krishna. The car has a relationship. The house, the wife, the kids. So all these things, then it's not Maya anymore. Because ultimately, nothing is Maya, as we've talked about before. Ultimately, everything is Krishna's energy. So the only thing that's Maya is our own mental state is Maya. But there's nothing actually that's Maya. Maya means thinking there's something that's not Krishna. That's Maya. But that's our own illusory state of mind. So that has to be cleaned.
Clean and
That
control.
that illusory state of mind, that's the dust. That's dust on our mind, thinking there's something other than Krishna, thinking that Krishna's not here. That idea that there's no Krishna, Krishna's not here, just matter is here around us, that's Maya, that's illusion. And that's not reality. The reality is that everything is Krishna or Krishna's energy. So coming back to that state, that's Krishna consciousness. And that state, we can get to that state mainly through chanting in Kali Yuga, mainly through chanting, we can get through that state. And by what we're doing, hearing, because actually the first of the 9 processes is Shravanam. Shravana means hearing, and then the second one is Kirtanam, which means chanting. So these are the main 2 processes out of the 9, is this process of hearing and chanting. And what starts off the cleansing process is the Shravanam, is hearing. And then after hearing about Krishna, then naturally we'll want to chant. Like, first of all, even with you and with me also, first of all, you heard about Krishna from someone, and then, like it seems like recently you've started to chant. So hearing came first, then chanting. So that's the same. That's how we develop faith to take up the chanting, is through we've become convinced about the importance of chanting through hearing about Krishna. And this even materially, that's the way it works, through hearing. I mean, you could say, why did many Indians leave India and go to Australia or go to New Zealand? Why? Because they heard that you were over there and heard that, well, Australia is such a great place, that's not very crowded, the weather's nice, and you can get a great job there, make lots of money and become rich, and everyone over there has a great car and a big house, and we heard something about it, and then you move there. So that's how the faith develops to act in any way, whether it's materially or spiritually, is through hearing. So we do the same thing, but we just hear about Krishna, and through that, then naturally we go in that direction.
So true. I mean, yeah, that's. And I was reading the book. It says if you repeat something in your mind, or if for example, you want a car, you keep repeating it, and then what happens? You buy a car one day. Same thing. You keep
Yeah,
you keep
yeah,
repeating about Krishna, you will get there. I guess. I mean, that's
yeah,
that's the way. And so the process is same exactly. I mean, the mind. Basically, we have understood how mind works, and Krishna is
yeah,
telling us how to
yeah,
control it. So it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's very scientific. I mean, it's not
It's
just
very scientific. So the next scientific step in the process, after hearing about Krishna and then chanting about Krishna, then the third thing, which logically follows, is Vishnu Smaranam, which means you'll remember Krishna. It means if you're always chanting Krishna's name and thinking about him, then naturally you're going to remember. Naturally, you're going to remember. You know, how do you remember some particular subject you want to remember? You talk about it.
we talk about it.
You know, like for me, the best way for me to remember this philosophy is by talking about it. So, like I'm talking to you about this philosophy is actually helping me so much
Yeah,
because it
that's
helps to cement it within me. Even, I mean, people that teach about, how to increase your memory and everything, that even materialistic, seminars or whatever, they tell you, if you want to remember some subject, then tell someone about it, talk about it to someone.
mm,
So it's the same process. So you hear about God, you talk about God, and you'll remember God. And that for us is already perfection. Because as we know in the Bhagavad Gita, it says here in the 8th chapter, if at the time of death you remember God, then you're liberated. And he says, whatever you remember at the time of death, that state you'll go in your next life. So if you remember a woman when you die, you're going to become a woman in your next life. If you remember a dog when you die, you're going to become a dog in your next life. If you remember God in your next life, you're not going to become God, but you'll become godly. You'll become just like God, because in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha, everyone looks like God. Everyone's beautiful and has an eternal body, and they're like that. So like in Vaikuntha planets, Vishnu has 4 arms, and the Vishnu Dutas, the servants of Vishnu, they all have 4 arms. So they're just like him. So that's how it works. And that's perfection, because see, everything in this process is directed towards the perfection of that. When the body dies and the soul leaves the body, we want to be remembering God. That's what it's all aiming towards, that point. And what we're doing right now is the best thing we can possibly do to help us get the best result at the time of death. That now we're hearing about God, we're talking about God, then that's going to slowly leave impressions called samskaras, very deep samskaras in our mind, impressions and in our memory, and it's going to be fixed more about God. And then in due course, whether we die of COVID next week or get hit by a bus in a year, or cancer in 10 years or whatever like that, or old age when we're 101 or whatever, then it doesn't matter, but we'll be remembering God, and that's the perfection. And that in the Shastras is called Ante Narayana Smriti. That's the goal of the Vedas. The goal of the Vedas, Ante Narayana Smriti. Ante means, you can say,
ante means end is not ending or something. I don't
yeah, end. Ante is the end.
know.
Adi is the beginning,
Adi,
Adi,
big,
and
and
Ante is the end.
anta.
Narayana, that's obvious, God, and Smriti. Smriti means to remember. So to remember Narayan at the ante, at the end, at the time of death. So the best way to help us to remember God at the end of our life is to hear about God and glorify God now while we're alive in
And
this
that's very
body.
logical as well. I mean,
That's very
you
logical.
remember
This is the
if you want to
science.
remember something at the end, you have to review it, repeat it every. You keep repeating it. So
Yeah.
it's very logical. I mean, yeah, you can relate to material, learning or something, whatever you learn, and basically
Any
it's
kind of education
yeah,
is the same. In your end of year exams, when you're doing your engineering or accounting or whatever you're doing, medical degree or whatever like that, end of year exam, how are you going to remember all that stuff? You just got to keep repeating it, isn't it?
Periodically, you have to, yeah.
2 plus 11 is 13, 2 plus 11 is 13, 2 plus 11 is 13, 2 plus 11 is 13. Eventually it sticks in. So you just keep repeating it, so, and then you're going to remember it in the exam like that, like that. So it's the same process, but we're just the central point is different. The central point is Krishna, whereas previously the central point was me, so, but the same idea. And that's the beauty of it. It's just so logical. Many times, Prabhupada would be talking with some atheist or something like that, and some scientist or whatever, and they would say, "Oh, this is a religion." Prabhupada said, "No, this is not a religion. We're talking science. This is science. This is a spiritual science." And then that's wonderful, because science means it's universal. Doesn't matter, 1 plus 1 is 2 in India, and 1 plus 1 is 2 in Australia, and 1 plus 1 is 2 in New Zealand. It's not like, you're not talking about, a Hindu God and a Christian God and a Muslim God or whatever like that. It's talking about the same thing. You don't say the Indian sun and the New Zealand sun and the, African sun. There's only one sun. Like that, so we just talk about it like that in a very scientific way.
I think that's the Uttamadhikari. He's looking at everyone as same,
Yeah.
Not as New Zealander, Indian, or American. Borders. What borders? I mean, you made borders.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's it's a totally different, shift from what used to think, clearing up.
Yeah. And really the shift is really coming from a life of ignorance to a life of full knowledge. That's what it is. Because it's just knowledge. That vision that we have is all about knowledge. You don't have knowledge, you're just seeing the dress. That's all you see.
Yes.
Just the dress. And if you have knowledge, you realize, oh, there's a person inside the dress. Like imagine a little kid, right, sees a car going along the road. They're just thinking, wow, there's this car is just going. They're not realizing there's a person that's driving it. But, when you get a bit older, you realize that there's actually a separate, person inside the car. It's not just the vehicle is just moving by itself. So it's just having that more knowledge. Like what Prabhupada tells a story, this is a true story, that the dolak or the mridanga, the drum, right?
Yeah.
It makes a noise. So the person was hitting it and a noise was coming. So one little child thought that there was a person inside the drum making the noise. So he cut the head of the drum, because the head of the dolak is made from skin. The mridanga is made from skin. So he cut the drum, and some people thought, oh, what a stupid kid! He's cut the drum. Actually, that kid was very intelligent. Because he thought there must be a person behind that sound. It can't be just coming by itself. Actually, I mean, the person was beating the drum. That's why it was making noise. There wasn't a person inside. But still, understanding there must be some person there. So that's very intelligent.
Yeah, that's the,
So you can't have a car can't work without a driver. This body can't function without the driver inside, the soul. So that even though you can't see it, even though you can't necessarily see the driver, but by intelligence, by knowledge and intelligence, there must be some operator. There has to be some operator. There has to be some driver there.
So this body is basically an instrument, isn't it? And that's what somewhere in Bhagavad Gita as well. It's a yantra.
Yantra, yes, yantra. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Anyway, we've gone over time. I don't want to take your time more.
Yeah, it's just so true. I mean, it's just a yantra. If you look at that, it
Yeah,
functions as, yeah, it's
just a
got a heart
machine.
and everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so and we never think about that from that
yeah,
perspective. You know, it's
yeah,
just my body, me. I am
yeah,
relating it to my body. That's
yeah.
yeah, it's quite you know amazing.
And you see, they have knee operations and hip operations and heart operations, and it's just like a machine. Like your wheel
Yeah,
is
and just
broken,
replace
you put on a new
parts.
wheel. Your windscreen wipers, you put. So the same, you have put in an eye or put in an arm or something, or like they have bionic arms and everything like that. It's just a machine.
I don't know. Somebody said to me that this body itself is a, you can actually realize in every machine that we have created in this world, the material machinery
Mm,
we have created, you can simulate it through your body. I mean, there's some similarity in terms
mm,
of, it produces energy, movement, and all those things. So
yeah,
it's such a complex machinery. I mean,
yeah,
how it's who made it? I mean, yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well, that's
amazing.
the thing. Also, we have to understand, just like every machine has someone designed it, someone operator of it. So we should think with logically, this is the most complicated machine. It must have the most brilliant designer and operator like that. This is
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
How the eyes focus in and out, and it's incredible how they work, and the heart is pumping blood all
yeah,
around, and the lungs is circulating air all around, and everything's just, even how these hands can pick up even a very small thing, pick it up, they're just so perfectly, it's just
exactly.
amazing, put it in the mouth, it's just incredible. So we should think that there, by logic, there must be some intelligent designer behind it, and there
That's
is
it.
a theory called intelligent design theory,
Um,
because there's two main theories, right, to how it all began. It's called the Big Bang theory.
yeah,
The Big Bang theory, of course, we know that, and the intelligent design theory. Big Bang theory means basically there's no God involved. It just happened by chance. There was an explosion and all that. And intelligent design theory means God. So he's the designer, he has intelligence, and he designed everything perfectly. He created everything. So those are the two main theories about how the universe began and everything. But if you think intelligently, then that intelligent design theory makes a lot more sense than the
more
Big
sense.
Bang theory.
That's so
Mm.
true. Yeah. That's so
Anyway,
good. Yeah.
well, that
I
was
think it's
so wonderful once again. That
yeah,
was
very nice.
lovely.
Yeah, it's already time. I think it's